We talked about Mitch Marner, but how about the rest of the big four? And the question I will pose to you, and before I get to that question, I'll just say this. A lot of people are saying that, you can't win a Stanley Cup based on how the Leafs have their salary cap right now, how they're paying four guys a large portion of the $80 million salary cap, give or take around the $80 million range, whatever it comes in next season, that it's going to be very difficult to win a championship when your team is structured that way. So here's the question I'm going to ask you, Lepore. Can the Toronto Maple Leafs be successful with these big four contracts in place? And when I say successful, let's not even talk about winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But can they win a playoff series? Can they make a deep playoff run with these big four contracts in place right now?
Be successful. I think they can. What I think the big four contracts say, to me anyway, is that it exactly points to where this team has to find value. Like, let's face it, like they would not be looked at the same way. Let's say if it was two forwards, two defensemen. And I'm not going to, or even like say maybe a goalie making big money. Like people would say, oh yeah, they got star players, but it's balanced. People look at the fact that it's four forwards. Now you look at any team in the league, you see how they're built, whether it's a lot of firepower with their forwards, a strong D-core, a goalie who makes a boatload of cash. Teams have to find value somewhere. And let's say a team that's balanced, well, then they have to have value throughout their lineup. To me, it's just that you look at it and you say, well, they have to find value in depth, defense, and goaltending. That's where they have to find value. And what I've always thought is that there is the argument that it's easier to find value in those places. And people would freak out at that answer, I'm sure, but like, give me a second here. So I've always pointed to the idea that people will point to a star player and how much money they make and if it's too much or whatever. But when you look down the lineup on certain teams, you'll see like a third liner making $4 million who deserves $2 million.
Yeah, like the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Jay Beagle,
exactly.
And Antoine Roussel and guys like that.
And I've always said it's the same thing because people see it almost like percentage wise, but no, sorry, they see it just numerically. Like this guy makes this amount and it jumps out. But no, as far as percentage of the cap goes, okay, well, if you have $8 million in overpayment throughout your lineup, well, that's 10% of the cap. It doesn't matter where it is, if it's in high-end players or lower players, or even if it's fair money. Like, say, if you look at those four players, I don't think, with the exception of Marner, we touched on this last week. Yeah, you could say he makes a little bit too much, but even then, top five scorer in the league. Like, this guy's a star player. He would get that money someplace else. You look at how the deals are structured in the current CBA, entry-level deals. You get a guy in the lineup on an entry-level deal who's a consistent NHL player and contributing. There's huge value in that. Huge value in that. You sign a Jason Spezza. There is huge value in that. Bogosian, incredible value. Jack Campbell, incredible value. It's easier to find those guys and get value from those guys than to find value in a guy or a group of guys who are going to be point of game players. It's almost impossible. Like those guys that you have, if you could, I'm not going to argue with the idea of like locking those guys in. I'm not, because at the end of the day, those are the hardest players to find. Where the Leafs have to be successful or have to, I'm going to say, get lucky, they have to hit the jackpot somewhere. And I know that sounds like people say, well, easy to say, but if you look at it historically, the teams who say win Stanley Cups or are consistently good, the Leafs haven't really been lucky with that. Like you look at their star players, like, okay, John Tavares was a free agent and they paid for him. Matthews was first overall. We got lucky with Marner in the way that the Coyotes picked Strome ahead of him, but he was still a fourth overall pick. Nylander was a high first round pick. Morgan Rielly was a high first round pick. these guys, I'm not going to say they were supposed to be what they are, but they were blue chip guys. Like these were guys who we could assume, yeah, these are guys who are going to be in our lineup for a long time. When you look back at the teams that do win a Stanley Cup or multiple Stanley Cups, they'll have like a random like trade where there was some throw-in guy who ends up being like a good second line player. Or like I always look at Chicago. If I remember correctly, Duncan Keith was drafted in the second round and Sharp was like a throw-in on a deal with Philadelphia. It's like they won the lottery with that. Like you got Duncan Keith in the second round. And again, like people always say, oh, but that's their scouting. I always laugh at that because what I would say to that is, well, they picked someone else ahead of Duncan Keith, which means that they thought that player was better than Duncan Keith. And I'd have to go back to see. I always laughed at the Red Wings, the comments about the Red Wings, like, oh, they're scouting. They drafted
Zetterberg in like the 7th round.
Yeah, that means they skipped over him like 5 or 6 times. Like they were
same with Datsuk.
Exactly.
Like it's like, get out of here.
Well, what was it? The one Lidstrom. Because they got Lidstrom in the second round. I think it was Sillinger. So I mean, guys, that means they thought Sillinger was better than Lidstrom. So
he was like, I think Lidstrom was the 53rd overall pick in the draft.
There you go. Like best defenseman ever.
Exactly, one of the top 2 or 3 defensemen that ever lived.
Yeah. So where it is with the Leafs, and it is for all teams, is that the Leafs have to get a bounce somewhere there. I think to get to that like next level. It's like I'm looking at guys now, like Rasmus Sandin has to be a stud, or like Robertson's got to be like his brother. And like come out guns a-blazing early in his career. So just to me, like, can they be successful with the big 4? I think they can. Like, I really do think they can. And how I mentioned before about scoring, the more you score, it's so funny how we're talking about this, because here I'm about to say, the more you score, the more you're built to score, the more advanced stats become relevant. Well, they just lost after like beating the shit out of a team as far as advanced stats go. But I mean, yeah, that is what it is. But to me, if they can be successful, yeah, I think they can. It's just a matter of there are direct areas on the team where value has to be achieved, and they got to hit it. They got to work hard. They got to get it, whether it's drafting, trade, free agency, getting kids from Europe. So it's just a direct path. I see it makes it very black and white as to what they have to do is what it is.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Lepore. I mean, really, it is black and white. It's simple. We all know what the Leafs need to do, and Kyle Dubas knows what he needs to do. When you have that much money tied up in 4 guys, you have to find value throughout your lineup at some of these other positions. And you see what the Leafs have done, right? Even getting guys from Europe, like you mentioned, like going to get Ilya Mikheyev, or taking a chance on my boy, Mikko Lehtinen, who obviously didn't work out with the
Remember
Toronto
him?
Leafs. Yeah. Mikko Lehtinen, man. I actually really thought that he was going to play a pretty big role on this team this year. And I mean, I still think that he's going to find a way to be a good player. I believe he's still with Columbus right now. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the guy wants to just take off back to Europe. But yeah, I mean, you gotta find value, and that comes in guys like Jason Spezza and Zach Bogosian, like you mentioned. And obviously, the Leafs are, they're going to be lucky in a way here with Jack Campbell, having,
for a year at least,
anything of a cap hit, especially when you compare it to what Anderson was making coming in at $5 million. So you're going to have your starting goalie now making under $2 million a year. And I know it's only one more season of Jack Campbell. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, that's what the Leafs need to do moving forward, right? And I think the way that they should approach this, you have your big 4 in place. And sure, would it be nice to get another like high quality top 6 forward? Like, because ideally, you don't really want like Galchenyuk to be like a go-to guy in the top 6. Like, I thought Galchenyuk played well. I mean, obviously he made some gaffes, especially in overtime. That he made the gaff. That
one of the biggest gaffes in Maple Leafs history.
5 against Montreal. Yeah, for real. I mean, it probably was one of the biggest gaffes in Leafs history. But he honestly, he played well. He had some really good moments in that series, and even going back to the regular season, he fit in well in that top 6. Now, was he like fantastic? No, but he provided like quality top 6 production as that 5th or 6th best guy in the top 6, right after the big 4. Obviously, you would like to upgrade on that. A lot of people go back and say, oh, the Leafs should have traded for Taylor Hall. And we can have that conversation another day. But yeah, would it be nice to have a Taylor Hall on the wing, with Matthews and Marner or with Tavares and Nylander? Of course it would be. So I think the Leafs, if they can find a way to bring in another like high-end top six forward, and I'm not saying this forward has to make a lot of money, because obviously that's going to be extremely difficult for the Leafs to facilitate something like that, but that would be nice. But the way that I look at it is that if you're Kyle Dubas, you now have to just go all in on your philosophy. You have to go all in on the speed, the skill, the aggressive offensive style. No more Wayne Simmons. No more Joe Thornton. No more guys that can't move and can't produce offense and can't play the way that Keefe and Dubas want them to play.
Yeah. What's the line? If you can't skate, we don't want you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There
you go. And watching Wayne Simmons specifically, and we can make fun of Joe Thornton all we want, but Wayne Simmons, I mean, he was useless. I'm just going to go out and say it. Like, he had one decent stretch in the regular season, and it wasn't even the fact that Wayne Simmons couldn't move and couldn't produce anything offensively. He wasn't even providing physicality. That's what kind of pissed me off watching him play throughout the season, is like, I didn't even think it's like he wasn't even fast enough for his physicality to matter.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's like the worst thing you can say about a player, especially a forward, is I didn't notice you.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of games I didn't even notice him.
Just did not even notice him. It's like he wasn't even fast enough. He wasn't able to move his feet quick enough to lay a hit or be, a physical force or be a great player in terms of cycling the puck down low and creating opportunities below the goal line. Like,
I was going to say, even like on the power play, being a big body in front, like kind of being like a JVR, like not even that.
Yeah, being like the Wayne Simmons that we saw in Philadelphia. And listen, no one thought we were going to get the Wayne Simmons from Philadelphia, almost leading the league in power play goals and things like that. But it's like, this dude just completely fell off a cliff. So I think if you're Dubas, you're going back to the drawing board. You are just completely moving away from any player like that. You're not bringing in anyone for their experience and their grit and their physicality. You are bringing in players who are going to move, who are going to create offense, and who are going to cause problems playing in that bottom six against lesser matchups. Yeah. And is it going to be difficult to find, two more Jason Spezzas? Yeah, it probably is, because Jason Spezza, listen, he's not a $700,000 player. We all know that, okay? And we can even get into that conversation. That dude has all the leverage in the world going back to the table. He could be like, look how many points I had per minute played, right? I believe if you look at like the underlying numbers in terms of like 5-on-5 points per 60 minutes,
he was like one of the best players in the league or something.
Absurd. Yeah. So is it going to be difficult to fill your bottom six with a bunch of, Jason Spezza caliber players? Yeah, that's going to be tough to do, but there's no reason you can't bring in, another Ilya Mikheyev from somewhere, right? And like you said, Lepore, mentioning Nick Robertson, like he's got to be an everyday player in this lineup next season, and he's got to produce offense in the bottom six. So I think if you're the Leafs, that's where you need to go next season. Is you got to go all in on this philosophy. You got to keep that defense core in place. You hope that Campbell comes back and has a bounce back season, and then you hope that come playoff time, your team is healthy and you finally find a way to win a damn playoff series.
Yeah, like to the point again about finding the value, it just shows that. And when I'm sure they knew this, or I expect they knew this when they went this route of those 4 contracts. They have a lot of confidence in the Marlies and their system, that they're going to be able to produce guys coming in on entry level contracts. Because again, to the point of like paying the star players, if we could somehow create, and I know like Dom Lucian does it, if we could somehow create like some like objective model of like all the players in the league and how much they should make, and then see what they do make, you're far more likely to find a guy who's making, or get your hands on a guy who's making $2 million, who maybe deserves $4 million, compared to a guy who I think maybe makes $5 million and is worth $7 million. Like, I think those guys exist, but I think they're a lot more rare. Like on those entry level deals, those guys trying to stay in the league, that's where you can find real and true value, right? And like even guys like in the past, remember like Tyler Ennis a few years ago, like he was a good pickup, like again, worth far more than what we were paying him. So that's the route they got to go. But one thing I will say about this big four and the contracts they got, these four, okay, you know, I'm not even going to say these four because like Willie was a little different, but I'm saying it more with regard to Marner and Matthews. Those deals piss me off. They really and truly piss me off. And I'll tell you why. I've been a Leafs fan my entire life. I'm going to be a Leafs fan for the rest of my life. At the end of the day, to sound corny, players come and go. I'm still going to be a Leafs fan. But being as objective as I can, there are certain advantages that exist when it comes to playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Endorsement deals, books you can write when you retire. These guys, you hear these stories of what these past players make, like showing up to golf tournaments and events. Everything that comes with being a Maple Leaf player is far greater. I don't give a shit what anyone says. It's far greater than any other team in this league. The brand is absolutely huge. You go on Mitch Marner's Instagram, every few days there's something new. There's a cologne, there's Red Bull, there's a, what was he doing? Range Rover he was doing?
Yeah, this dude is
like PlayStation. Like he's getting paid everywhere. I've even heard someone was telling me it came from, I think it was like Mike Eastwood. Like he had 1 year with the Leafs and he said, like, this is way back, but he would just get to his stall after practice and there would just be shit in his stall because like, oh, the Leafs signed a new deal with so-and-so and every player gets like whatever new electronic or thing because. And again, all these things that come with being a Maple Leaf. I'd like to look these kids in the eye, these two kids in the eye and say, you know what? You're entitled to ask for whatever you want to ask for. You have an agent. What did you give up? What did you give up? And again, I am not going to sit here and say you have to give up something, but as a fan, I'm going to say I'd like to see you give up something. Did you give up money? No. Did you take more term? No. You got your money up front, right? Yeah. So then what? Well, what negotiation took place? And I'll say it, even with Matthews, and like, there's been so much shitting on Marner about his contract. Matthews, okay. Connor McDavid signed an 8-year deal at $12.5 million. Matthews signed a 5-year deal at $11.65. And it takes him to unrestricted free agency. So I'd like to know again, it's a negotiation.
He got everything he wanted.
I'd like to know, Bruno, when he sat at that table with his agent or his agent sat there looking across from Dubas and Shanny, what was the first thing they wanted? Was it, I want 5 years and for $15 million? Like what was the number that got him down to 11.65 or whatever it is? Because his deal essentially is better than McDavid's.
It is, because McDavid, he's probably looking, first of all, it's like, why the hell did I sign an 8-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers? But I should be making like $14 million a year. Yeah.
They say the number. I think, again, it could have been Dom decision. I think McDavid's true value, like objectively in his model, was like 18 or 19 million a year, right? Like something absolutely bananas. But like, I just look at these deals and I'm like, on that side, what did you give up? What did you give us? The benefits that come with playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this situation, like even further, the medical stuff, like the staff, the facilities, all that, being a god in this city, everything. What did you give up? And that is why the next time those two come up, and we just said it's going to be next year, and I know it won't happen like this. I can only dream, because I'm going to bring up Matthews, because like it's coming up at the end of next year. A piece of paper with a number on it, a term on it, you have 48 hours. That's it. Because we got to move on. We're not giving you everything again. We're happy to have I don't even want a negotiation. Because at the end of the day, if Kyle Dubas is there and he is saying that I'm about metrics, I'm about numbers, I'm the biggest advanced stats geek in the world when it comes to hockey, that means in his mind, whenever he runs through that computer, Auston Matthews has a quantitative value. And if he really and truly believes in his models and what he's built with the Toronto Maple Leafs, that value is going to be put on a piece of paper. And this is it. This is it. Because again, these kids got away with it last time. And it might end up severely fucking us. Like we were just sitting here saying, yeah, we think they can be successful with how they're currently structured. This wouldn't be a discussion if they all made $1 million or $2 million less and had 1 or 2 more years on their deals. And to say that, people say, oh, that's ideal. Yeah, maybe, but it's not unrealistic. If Matthews would have, at the time, Eichel signed for 10 times 8 years, 10 million times 8 years. And McDavid had the 12.5. And everyone thought, yeah, so Matthews is going to be in the middle, which he ended up being on the higher end of the middle. But then he signed for 5. Had he signed for 11 times 8, it would have been like, okay, that makes sense. And he gave up a little. He gave us the term. So I don't think it's unfair for me as a Maple Leafs fan to say that would have been a fair deal. And especially because we're the Toronto Maple Leafs and we have money coming out of the sky. You got all your money up front. The number one, beyond like the lockout protection aspect of it, if something, it's kind of closed now, but had that happened, and also like grade 11 finance class, everybody, you get that money up front. It is far more valuable. You can leverage that money. You can invest that money. And then, if there's ever a trade, I guess one thing you can say that happens on the Leaf side is that, well, he's easier to trade now because if we ever want to trade him because he's paid out a lot of his actual cash. But then to that point, well, that helped us and we did that and it also benefited you. So when it comes to those two guys, man, I will say, like, I'm happy to have them. I want Mitch Marner and Auston Matthews to retire as Toronto Maple Leafs. And like, call me cheesy. I love the story that we drafted them and this and that. And I got to say, like, the romanticism of it. You look at the Blackhawks, like, they were the joke of the league for a long time. They get Taves and Kane. They won the 3 cups. Their numbers are going to be in the rafters one day. It's an amazing story. I want that. Like, I want that story. But those kids last time got everything. Even Marner, man. Like, now I'm going nuts. Like, that number that he got. What did he go to the table with? Like, you can argue whether he got value a little high. Well, you won in at what, 13 million?
Yeah, if you said it's insane to think about that he actually could have gone into that negotiation and demanded like McDavid money.
If you think about it, he's making what, like 1.5 million less essentially than McDavid, but again, he got less term. What? Like what? So again, when he first went to the table, well, I want what McDavid's getting and I want shorter term so I get free agency faster. Are you nuts? Like this is where like, oh my God, like can someone snap on these kids or snap on their agents? And I'm saying, man, that is where like we will see like what Kyle Dubas is made of, man. Can they win with this big four? The answer should have been a slant. This team could have been in a situation where they could have already won had we not been in these situations. And I know it's idealistic to say like, oh, had they taken hometown discounts and this and that. Come on. We're not saying we expect them to play for half of what they're playing for. Like at least the thing with Tavares, he was a free agent. So he's entitled to go out there and, well, someone's going to give it to me. And you could say Matthews and Marner could say the same thing, but we drafted them. It's restricted free agency. Like, come on, man. Come on. I'm saying it. You put those numbers on that piece. There's no negotiation next time as far as I'm concerned. And I say that because of the quantitative way that Dubas thinks. It's not happening, man. It's not happening. This is it. Because really and truly, I would challenge Dubas to say, at the end of the day, Kyle, every player to use a number. Every player has a quantitative value. Then, Kyle, it shouldn't matter who your players are. It shouldn't matter how your team is built because it's all data. Whether it's one guy scoring 50 or 2 scoring 25 or 3 that work out to about 50, it's like, well, Kyle, no, you're the math guy. It shouldn't matter. It's just about getting value everywhere. You chose to go this route because you think it's the quote unquote easiest or this is what was handed to you. But Kyle, I don't want you to fold over next time. Because again, like Matthews is going to go to that table. So even before McDavid's deal, so he's going to want more than McDavid. And you could say, well, McDavid's going to come up free in a few years and we'll see where that goes. But again, this conversation about the big four, I really focus on those two. Man, I'm allowed to be a fan here. Like I try my best not to be a fan and try to think of things from like an organizational perspective or like an objective perspective. Like, no. Those two kids got everything. They did not give up a thing. And that's why next time I will be really pissed off if it happens again. Really pissed off because the Leafs still are. This is a great hockey team. They are in a great situation. They should be in an even better situation. And we're not, because those two guys, you could even say, if they got their value, we could have done better, man. We could have done better. Go play in Carolina. Go play in Columbus. Yeah, Austin, you think you get the cover of NHL if you're playing for the Nashville Predators? Well, Subban got it, so someone could fire back at me with that. But people know where I'm going with this. Those little sticks they sell to Tim Hortons, Matthews and Marner. You think you're one of those guys if you're playing somewhere else?
No one would.
No one cares. No one cares. Jersey sales. My nephew has every Leafs jersey of the last 5 years, every player on it. Like, guys, those, you make money on that. That doesn't get bought if you're not playing for the Maple Leafs, guys. Like, and they could come back and say, well, I deserve that anyway. Well, try it somewhere else then, man. Because again, this was a long rant. This was my longest rant since we started this podcast.
I love it, Lepore. I love emotional here. Michael Lepore.
Oh my God, man. Disappointing, man. Disappointing. So next time, man, like I said, piece of paper, 2 numbers, a number, a term, and we'll pay them up front again. What the hell do we give a shit? We have the money with that too. Yeah, take the money up front. We don't care. But again, you have to give me something. You have to give up something, like on these. It's a negotiation. The last time the way I see it, what was the negotiation? I don't know. So
yeah, and that's why a lot of people were mad at Kyle Dubas at the time, right? When you saw those contracts come in and you're like, really? Marner 10.9, Matthews 11.6.
Yeah, and like they weren't brutal, but I think people know where I'm going with it.
It was brutal, but you're just like, oh man, that's a lot to give, 2 players that haven't proven anything, that have obviously showed that they could be elite players in the regular season, but have done fuck all in the playoffs and have yet to win a playoff series. And
maybe that helps Kyle next time. I don't give a shit what you've done.
Oh yeah, at this point, if it keeps going this way, the Leafs are going to have all the leverage in those conversations. If you can't win a damn playoff series, and you look at like the Chicago Blackhawks, for example, like Taves and Kane didn't get paid anything until they won 3 Stanley Cups. It was almost like Chicago was like, okay, you guys won us 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
You get your money. You get your money. Go enjoy it. We're going to go through, a few years of shit here and try to rebuild this, but we're going to pay you guys your money because you've totally earned it. Whereas in this situation, the Leafs haven't earned anything. And, you said it with John Tavares, Lepore. He was a free agent. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. There were rumors that San Jose was offering him like $13 million a season, in that range. And he ended up obviously taking the Leafs deal, wanted to play for his hometown team. So
there was the rumor that Columbus had an offer sheet for Marner too. It was like $13 million. This kid go play in Columbus.
Yeah, go ahead, Marner.
Go ahead, Mitch.
See if your career ends up the same way.
Yeah, we'll take the 4 first-round picks, and we have $11 million of cap space. Like,
yeah, I know it's frustrating to talk about, man. And yeah, I mean, those guys just have to prove it. Prove it when it matters most. Prove that you're worth that money. And you know what? I think if they end up showing up in the playoffs next season and everybody stays healthy, then I think at some point, I really do. I think that Kyle Dubas is going to be proven right that you can actually be successful, having your team structured this way when it comes to the salary cap.